Hey music lovers! Before we dive into today's story about two legendary folk icons, I want to invite you to join our musical journey by subscribing to this channel. Hit that subscribe button and notification bell so you never miss our deep dives into the fascinating stories behind the music you love. Now, let's explore the complex relationship between Joan Baez and Joni Mitchell that shaped folk music history. Joan Baez, a folk music legend, sits in a sunlit room, her voice calm but filled with frustration. After years of staying quiet, she finally opens up about her rocky relationship with Joni Mitchell, revealing a side of the singer that fans never knew. If Baez had never spoken out, fans might never have known the real story behind their rivalry. A story that shows the emotional struggles and creative battles that helped shape some of the most iconic music of their time. The story of Joan Baez and Joni Mitchell's relationship isn't just about two talented women who occasionally butted heads. It's about how competition can fuel creativity, how artistic differences can lead to innovation, and how the music industry often pitted women against each other in an era of tremendous cultural change. Their story reflects the broader challenges faced by female artists in the 1960s and 70s, while also revealing the personal dynamics that influenced some of the most beloved music of the 20th century. To understand the full scope of their relationship, we need to travel back to the vibrant music scene of the 1960s. This was a time of tremendous cultural upheaval in America. The civil rights movement was gaining momentum, protests against the Vietnam War were spreading across college campuses, and young people were questioning traditional values and social norms. Music became the heartbeat of this cultural revolution, with folk artists leading the charge by giving voice to these movements through their songs. Joan Baez emerged as one of the earliest stars of this folk revival. Born in 1941, she had already established herself as a prominent figure in the folk movement by the early 1960s. Her crystalline soprano voice and masterful guitar playing captivated audiences, while her unwavering commitment to social activism made her more than just a musician. She became a symbol of the counterculture movement. Baez was known primarily for her beautiful renditions of traditional songs and spirituals, bringing ancient melodies to new audiences with passion and conviction. Her presence at the 1963 March on Washington, where she performed alongside Martin Luther King Jr., cemented her status as not just an entertainer but a voice for social justice. She used her platform to advocate for civil rights, peace, and human dignity. For many young people seeking meaning and purpose in turbulent times, Joan Baez represented the possibility that music could change the world. While Baez was already an established star, Joni Mitchell was just beginning her musical journey. Born in 1943 in Canada, Mitchell moved to the United States in the mid-1960s to pursue her musical career. Unlike Baez, who primarily performed covers of traditional songs, Mitchell was a songwriter with a uniquely personal approach. Her lyrics delved deep into her own experiences, emotions, and observations, creating intimate connections with listeners who found their own lives reflected in her words. Mitchell's approach to music was introspective and innovative. She experimented with unusual guitar tunings and jazz-influenced melodies, creating a sound that was distinctly her own. Her songwriting broke new ground, offering listeners a window into her soul through poetic lyrics and complex compositions. While Baez sang about social movements and collective struggles, Mitchell explored the landscapes of the human heart, loss, joy, and disillusionment. Their paths first crossed in the folk clubs and festivals of the 1960s. Initially, their interactions were cordial, marked by mutual respect for each other's talents. Baez, already a star, recognized Mitchell's potential and even performed some of her songs, helping to introduce this new voice to wider audiences. In these early days, there was a sense of camaraderie, a shared passion for music and its power to connect people. However, as the 1960s progressed and Mitchell's popularity began to surge, the dynamics between the two artists started to shift. Baez, who had been the undisputed queen of folk music, couldn't help but feel somewhat overshadowed by the rising star of Joni Mitchell. The media, always eager for a compelling narrative, picked up on this changing of the guard and began to frame the relationship between the two women as a rivalry, pitting them against each other in ways that amplified any natural competitive feelings. Mitchell, known for her candor and unwillingness to conform to expectations, didn't shy away from expressing her feelings about Baez. In interviews, she spoke about the competitive nature of their relationship, once suggesting that Baez would have happily broken her leg to maintain her position in the spotlight. Such statements, whether exaggerated or not, added fuel to the perception of a bitter rivalry between the two artists. However, as the 1960s progressed and Mitchell's popularity began to surge, the dynamics between the two artists started to shift. Baez, who had been the undisputed queen of folk music, couldn't help but feel somewhat overshadowed by the rising star of Joni Mitchell. The media, always eager for a compelling narrative, picked up on this changing of the guard and began to frame the relationship between the two women as a rivalry, pitting them against each other in ways that amplified any natural competitive feelings. Mitchell, known for her candor and unwillingness to conform to expectations, didn't shy away from expressing her feelings about Baez. In interviews, she spoke about the competitive nature of their relationship, once suggesting that Baez would have happily broken her leg to maintain her position in the spotlight. Such statements, whether exaggerated or not, added fuel to the perception of a bitter rivalry between the two artists. But the reality, as always, was more nuanced than the headlines suggested. While there was undoubtedly competition between them, there was also a complex mixture of admiration, respect, and even friendship at various points in their careers. They were, after all, two extraordinary women navigating a male-dominated industry during a time of rapid social change. The late 1960s and early 1970s marked a significant shift in the music industry. Folk music was evolving, incorporating elements of rock, jazz, and pop. Artists had to adapt to these changes or risk becoming irrelevant. Both Baez and Mitchell navigated this shifting landscape in their own ways, demonstrating their resilience and commitment to their art. Baez expanded her repertoire, incorporating contemporary songs into her performances. She covered songs by artists like the Beatles and Bob Dylan, demonstrating her ability to interpret modern material while maintaining her distinctive style. Her 1975 album Diamonds and Rust showcased this evolution, featuring original compositions alongside covers of songs by more contemporary artists. Mitchell, meanwhile, was pushing the boundaries of folk music in different directions. Albums like Blue, 1971, and Court and Spark, 1974, revealed her willingness to experiment with different genres, blending folk with jazz and pop elements. Her innovative approach to songwriting and composition established her as a pioneer, influencing countless musicians across multiple genres. Despite their different artistic paths, Baez and Mitchell found themselves sharing stages at significant events. One notable collaboration came during the Rolling Thunder Revue in 1975, a concert tour organized by Bob Dylan that featured a rotating cast of folk and rock musicians. During these performances, audiences witnessed the two women setting aside their differences for the sake of music, creating memorable moments that highlighted their unique talents. Offstage, however, the undercurrents of competition remained. Both artists were ambitious and driven, aware of the limited spotlight available for women in the industry. The pressures of maintaining relevance, creative integrity, and commercial success created a complex dynamic between them, influenced by personal goals and industry expectations. It's important to understand the context in which their rivalry developed. The music industry of the 1960s and 70s wasn't particularly welcoming to women with strong opinions and distinctive artistic visions. Female artists were often marketed in ways that emphasized their appearance over their talent, and the industry tended to pit women against each other, creating artificial competitions for the limited spaces allowed for female voices. Both Baez and Mitchell resisted these limitations in their own ways. Baez used her platform to advocate for social causes, refusing to be defined solely by her music. Mitchell fought for creative control over her work, rejecting industry pressures to make her music more commercial or accessible. Their determination to forge their own paths, despite obstacles, made them trailblazers for future generations of female artists. As their careers progressed, both women reflected on the nature of their relationship in various interviews and memoirs. These reflections revealed a growing understanding of how their rivalry had in many ways propelled them forward artistically. Mitchell in particular spoke about the challenges women faced in the music industry, acknowledging that the competitive environment often forced female artists into unnecessary conflicts. This recognition of the broader systemic issues at play helped contextualize their personal dynamics. What might have seemed like simple jealousy or competition was, in reality, a response to an industry that frequently undervalued and constrained women's contributions. By acknowledging these structural challenges, both artists offered insights into the complex interplay between personal ambition and societal limitations. The 1980s and 90s saw both artists continuing to evolve, though their paths diverged significantly. Baez remained dedicated to activism, using her music as a vehicle for social change across multiple causes and continents. Mitchell pursued increasingly experimental musical directions, exploring jazz and world music influences, while maintaining her commitment to honest, introspective songwriting. In recent years, there has been a renewed appreciation for the legacies of both Baez and Mitchell. Documentaries, retrospectives, and tribute concerts have celebrated their contributions to music and culture. This renewed interest has prompted both artists to revisit their past, including their complicated relationship with each other. In these reflections, there's a sense of reconciliation and perspective that comes with age and experience. Both women seem to recognize that their intertwined histories, marked by both conflict and occasional collaboration, have enriched their artistic journeys. The competition that once seemed so intense has been reframed as part of a complex creative dialogue that pushed both artists to greater heights. For fans and music historians looking back on this period, it's clear that the relationship between Joan Baez and Joni Mitchell represents something larger than a simple rivalry. It embodies the challenges and contradictions faced by women artists during a transformative period in American culture. Their story illustrates how competition can fuel artistic growth, how different approaches to similar genres can expand the boundaries of music, and how personal conflicts can sometimes lead to creative breakthroughs. The legacy of both women extends far beyond their interpersonal dynamics. Baez's unwavering commitment to social justice and her remarkable interpretive skills have inspired generations of activists and performers. Mitchell's groundbreaking songwriting and musical innovations have influenced countless artists across multiple genres, from folk and rock to jazz and beyond. What's particularly striking about their parallel careers is how they represented different but equally valid responses to the challenges of their time. Baez chose to use her voice as a tool for collective action, amplifying movements for peace and justice. Mitchell turned inward, exploring the personal dimensions of political and social change through introspective songwriting. These complementary approaches offered listeners different paths to understanding the tumultuous era in which they lived. Their relationship also raises important questions about how we frame women's interactions in the public sphere. Too often, relationships between talented women are reduced to simplistic tales of jealousy or cattiness, ignoring the complex realities of professional competition and the structural challenges women face. The Baez-Mitchell dynamic reminds us to look beyond these easy narratives and consider the multifaceted nature of creative relationships. As we listen to their music today, we can hear the echoes of their influence in contemporary artists. From the politically engaged folk of artists like Anya DeFranco to the confessional songwriting of figures like Taylor Swift, the legacies of Baez and Mitchell continue to shape and inform popular music. Their willingness to be authentic, to challenge conventions, and to prioritize artistic integrity over commercial considerations set a powerful example for musicians of all genders. The story of Joan Baez and Joni Mitchell serves as a reminder that our cultural icons are complex human beings, with all the messy emotions and contradictions that entails. Their rivalry, while at times contentious, ultimately contributed to the richness of their music and the depth of their legacies. It pushed them to refine their craft, to clarify their artistic visions, and to create work that continues to resonate with listeners decades later. As we reflect on their intertwined careers, we're invited to appreciate both the art they created and the human stories behind that art. We recognize that creative genius doesn't exist in isolation. It's shaped by relationships, by competition, by collaboration, and by the broader cultural context in which artists work. The Baez-Mitchell dynamic reveals how these forces can produce extraordinary music that speaks to the deepest aspects of human experience. For those discovering their music today, the alleged rivalry between these two icons offers an entry point into understanding the rich history of folk music and women's contributions to American culture. It helps us see how personal stories and broader social movements intersect, creating art that is both timely and timeless. The lasting impact of both Joan Baez and Joni Mitchell reminds us that artistic legacies are not determined by who wins a rivalry, but by the body of work created and the lives touched through that work. By this measure, both women have achieved remarkable success, creating music that continues to move, inspire, and challenge listeners around the world. Thank you for joining us on this journey through the intertwined lives of Joan Baez and Joni Mitchell. Their story reminds us that behind every song, there's a human story of struggle, growth, competition, and ultimately artistic triumph. If you enjoyed this deep dive into musical history, please support our channel by liking, sharing, and subscribing. Your engagement helps us bring more stories like this to music enthusiasts everywhere. Don't forget to hit that notification bell so you'll know when we post new content. Leave your thoughts in the comments below. We'd love to hear which Baez or Mitchell songs have touched your life. Until next time, keep exploring the fascinating stories behind the music you love.